This coming Shabbat, we will read from the Torah a passage which is actually the only Torah reading all year that is mandated by the Torah itself. All of our other readings are mandated only by rabbinic rule. The passage we will read is tragically most appropriate today at this memorial service in the presence of a synagogue full of people of all ages. And we are informed that at least 2,000 people are watching it online. The passage that we will read this Shabbat is appropriate today and on this Shabbat. Zachor et asher asa lacha Amalek, lo tishkach. Remember what Amalek did to you, and never forget. On this fast day, Ta'anit Esther, we pledge to fulfill this command. We will remember the murderers of the Fogle family, the murderers of Ruth, Udi, and 3 of their children, Elad, Yoav, and the baby, Hadas. Their murder by a modern-day Amalek. Savages, beasts, monsters, and we will never forget. And we will also remember the people who rejoiced when they heard the news about the murders. And we will never forget them either. That is why we are here today. Zachor, lo tishkach. May God comfort the surviving children and the entire Fogle family, among all of us who mourn for Zion and Jerusalem. May I ask those who are lighting the candles to come forward.
אנחנו מדליקים נר זיכרון זה לזכר נשמת אודי פוגל, בן 36.
אנחנו מדליקים נר זיכרון זה לזכר נשמת רות פוגל, בת 35.
אנחנו מדליקים נר זיכרון זה לזכר נשמת יואב פוגל, בן 11.
אנחנו מדליקים נר זיכרון זה לזכר נשמת אלעד פוגל, בן 4.
אנחנו מדליקים נר זיכרון זה לזכר נשמת הדס פוגל, בת 3 חודשים. Hashem yinkom damam. May their family be comforted amongst the mourners of Jerusalem and Zion.
שיר המעלות לדוד. לולא אדוני שהיה לנו, יאמר נא ישראל. לולא אדוני שהיה לנו, יקום עלינו אדם. אזי חיים בלעונו, בחרות אפם בנו. אזי המים שטפונו, נחלה עבר על נפשנו. אזי עבר על נפשנו המים הזיתונים. ברוך אדוני שלא נתננו טרף לשיניהם. נפשנו כציפור נמלטה מפח יוקשים. הפח נשבר ואנחנו נמלטנו. עזרנו בשם אדוני, עושה שמיים וארץ.
A song of ascents of David. If the Lord had not been on our side, let Israel say, if the Lord had not been on our side when people attacked us, they would have swallowed us alive when their anger flared against us. The flood would have engulfed us, the torrent would have swept over us, the raging waters would have swept us away. Praise be to the Lord who has not let us be torn by their teeth. We have escaped like a bird from the fowler's snare. The snare has been broken and we have escaped. Our help is in the name of the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth.
I want to thank Rabbi Lookstein, and a special thanks for being there always. I called him late at night. I said, we have to do something. He said yes. And from that, this event came about. To be very honest, I did it for me. I needed it. And as you can see by this turnout, we all needed it. We needed to come together to comfort one another, to strengthen one another, and to mourn together. You and all of those who are online, and countless others, because of the short notice, who would have wanted to be here. As we gather to memorialize and remember the Fogle family, with to think of the thousands who died in Japan, and we extend our condolences to their families. They were the victims of the forces of nature beyond the control of human beings. We now can only do whatever possible to help bring relief and assistance. The Fogle family, parents and little children, were brutally murdered by the hands of a barbaric, inhuman terrorists who planned and plotted this vile and evil act. Those responsible demonstrate the level of depravity that can only be compared to the worst of the Nazi hordes. This was an attack on the Fogle family, their community, but also on the state of Israel and the Jewish people. Of what were these innocents guilty? They were Jews celebrating Shabbat. Their murderers were likely driven by a vicious hatred, fostered by the continuous anti-Israel and anti-Jewish incitement of their political and religious leaders, starting with President Abbas and Prime Minister Fayyad and the other officials, driven as well by the extremist ideologies to which they have been indoctrinated constantly in their media, their mosques, and their schools. Who amongst us has not stared at these pictures, especially of the children, their innocent faces, and thought, what kind of creature could carry out such an outrage? Do their eyes not strike your soul? Who could imagine the horrors they endured in their last minutes? I see those faces before me all the time. They were not the first victims in Itamar. Another mother and 3 children in the Shabo family were earlier victims, as was a 14-year-old and another resident, all carried out by the ruthless terrorist attacks. But it is not where they lived that brought this about, for we have seen the victims of similar attacks in Jerusalem, in Tel Aviv, in Sderot, in Haifa, in Kiryat Shmona, and everywhere else in Israel. It is because they were Jews living in Israel. when murderous terrorists, bombers, are honored and declared shahids, when they have public squares and schools named for them, even just 2 days after this vicious attack, it sets the standard as to what is expected of the young people to be martyrs and murderers. If governments, even our own, do not stand out and shriek and condemn and take action when they see this kind of action by the Palestinian Authority and their representatives, and despite the repeated promises to end the incitement, we see it continue. They name places, buildings, squares, sports arenas for terrorist murderers. We make sure that our voices are heard. We have to demand accountability and that there will be consequences. When the families of those who carry out atrocities are given financial rewards, why should they not send their sons to die, killing innocent men, women, children, and babies? When officials, religious leaders, and others extol the terrorists and declare their mothers as heroic role models because their sons and daughters killed Jewish civilians, what should we expect? When the world greets such barbarism and depravity with virtual silence, even perhaps a balanced statement or at most a lip service condemnation, what is the message to these and other terrorists? When the media shifts the focus from the perpetrator to the victim, when they denigrate the murdered to justify the murderers, when they ignore and just put a small notice in the middle pages, then what price is there? Where is the outrage? Where is the indignation? Where is the humanity in the face of this vicious attack? They call them intruders. They bypass them even to call them terrorists, and always with a but at the end. I have been wary about comparisons to the 1930s. Rabbi Lookstein wrote a very meaningful book, Where We Are Brothers Keepers, which describes the actions and inaction during the years of the Holocaust. All too often now, I'm brought back to that period and wonder about the similarities. Many wonder how it could be that democracies, advocates of human and even animal rights, any human being could be indifferent to the suffering of others, to the incredible tragedies, to the deaths of millions. Well, we see today how little the world has learned. But we hopefully have learned the lessons of the past. We are here today to honor and remember the Fogels and to declare we will not be silent. Our generation, like all generations, must take the oath anew, never again, not as a hollow slogan to be yelled at rallies, but as a meaningful declaration that we will not allow our fellow Jews anywhere, anytime, to be victimized and brutalized or tolerate the silence and indifference of the world. As Rabbi Lookstein noted this weekend, is Shabbat Zachor, the Shabbat of remembrance. For us, remembrance is not about the past alone. It is about the future. We remember the future. We look back in order to look forward. Our Chazal taught us that only those who understand the lessons of history can meet the challenges of today and of tomorrow. We assure a better future by learning those lessons, to spare future generations those trials and tribulations. If we have learned the lessons of 70 years ago, the lessons of silence, then we will hold to account the Hamans and Amaleks of today. So tomorrow, no Jewish child will fear going to sleep or going on a bus or walking to school. Ad Mosai, how much must we take? We will not be intimidated and we will not be cowed. We will not be silent. We will speak up louder and louder. We hope that the surviving children of the Fogle family will find comfort among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. They were told of this gathering and of our love and concern, but it's probably of little consolation at this very heart moment. Our hearts and our souls are with them. Hamokom yenachem etchem. We pray that God will give them comfort. But through our unity, by coming together here and over in the future, we will hasten the day when we will see the Jews celebrating Ora v'Simcha with light and with joy. Nowhere is the hypocrisy to which the Jewish people in the state of Israel is subjected more visible on a daily basis than at the United Nations, where Israel is condemned, but those who murder ruthlessly are forgiven and forgotten. It is my opportunity and honor now to present to you Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Ambassador Reuben Meron.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends, I was in Israel last Shabbat with my 2 young daughters when I heard the tragic news. I never knew the Fogels, but like all Israelis, like everyone here today, I am outraged by this heinous crime and heartbroken by the loss of these beautiful and innocent people. Ruth, Udi, Yoav, Elad, and Hadas. 5 members of a loving family of 8. Udi Fogle grew up in Neve Tzuf and was a popular educator in Itamar. Ruth Fogle was raised in Jerusalem, daughter of Rabbi Yehuda ben Yishai. Together, they built a family of 6 children. According to many, 11-year-old Yoav was already a brilliant student. Elad, at the age of 4, was described as someone who always smiled. He was planning to dress up as the Israeli General Moshe Dayan for the upcoming Purim holiday. Hadas was the youngest of the Fogle children. She was 3 months old, just 3 months. Each of them was brutally murdered by a terrorist with unbounded hate and with the unimaginable callousness to butcher children and an infant. Although the Israeli government is now doing everything in its power to apprehend these depraved criminals, we can never bring back the Fogels. We cannot heal the hearts of the 3 surviving children who are now orphans. Friends, this is a time for moral clarity. As my mission wrote in a letter to the United Nations Security Council last weekend, all nations and decent people must clearly condemn these savage acts of terrorism without attempts at justification or equivocation. To the leaders of the Palestinian Authority, we have issued the same call. To them we say, speak with one voice, clearly and consistently. Condemn these acts to your own people. But condemning this horrific attack is not enough. They must also address the root cause of terror, which is a culture of incitement pervading Palestinian institutions that glorifies violence and martyrdom and demonizes Israelis and Jews. For lasting peace to take hold in our region, we must see an end to such incitement in Palestinian mosques, schools, and media. In these critical institutions, the Palestinian Authority must promote tolerance instead of hate, and mutual understanding instead of martyrdom, preparing their people to live in peace. Friends, today we come together to mourn what is not only an attack on a family or on a community, but also an attack on the Jewish people. As Jews around the world observe this weekend's Purim holiday with a heavy heart, we should honor the memory of the Fogels by rededicating ourselves to the enduring principles that have bound us together for millennia. In the midst of the Talmudic discourse about the story of Purim, we find this comment. Ve'amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Hanania, Tzadik Avad, Ledoro Avad, משל לאדם שאבדה לו מרגלית. כל מקום שהיא מרגלית שמה, לא עבדה אלא לבעלה. When we lose a righteous person, he is lost to his generation, but he is not lost. He is like a pearl that is lost to its owner, but is and remains a pearl. We have lost 5 pearls. The memory and the legacy of the Fogle family will be carried on through the unbreakable connection of the Jewish people and in the continued existence and success of our homeland, the State of Israel. In their memory, let us resolve to strengthen these bonds which bind us, saying clearly and unmistakably, Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you very much.
The Jewish Community Relations Council of New York is honored to be a partner in this important yet somber event, and I am pleased to see so many of my students and colleagues from Touro College as well. Jews all over the world and people of goodwill were outraged by the events on Friday night in the city of Itamar, the butchering of a beautiful Jewish family, the Fogels. And today we gather because at a moment like this, we want to be with each other, to share the grief and confirm that we are not alone in the aftermath of this tragedy. We also gather because it is wrong for the deaths of innocents to take place without some kind of response. None of us here will ever forget the pictures of the victims that so profoundly assaulted our senses. Images like that are normally associated with the crime committed in a state of frenzied passion, perpetrated by people who have lost control. We must not forget, and we must make sure that the world does not forget that this was not a crime committed by people who were out of control. But this act of terror is a result of methodical, cold-blooded, and meticulous planning. The terrorists killed Yoav, Elad, and beautiful little Hadas in an attempt to make us feel weak. And we gather here to make one simple statement. This event will not weaken us, although our hearts are broken. We remain strong and resolute in the defense of the State of Israel, in the defense of Jewish rights, and in the defense of human rights. 12-year-old Tamar Fogle, the eldest daughter of the Fogle family, said yesterday, "I will be strong and succeed in overcoming this. I understand the task that stands before me, and I will be a mother to my little siblings." While paying his respects to the mourners, Rami Levy, Israeli supermarket mogul, said, "You will have to get used to my face," he told the family. "I have committed myself that every week I will deliver food and stock your home until the youngest orphan turns 18. These murderers will not determine the course of Jewish history. We will determine the course of Jewish history. And the Tamar Fogels and the Rami Levis will determine our history. It is now my great honor to introduce a dear friend of the JCRC, Israel's Deputy Consul General, Shlomi Kaufman.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, let me begin by saying that unfortunately, the Consul General of Israel, Ido Aroni, is out of town and was not able to attend this memorial service. He has asked me to convey the following message. The butchering and devastation of the Fogle family is heartbreaking and mind-boggling. We share tears as the 3 children are left orphaned and find it unthinkable as how a person could carry out such a brutal act. No religion or faith of any kind would allow for this horrible act. No national aspirations or justification can rationalize a crime such as this inconceivable act of cruelty. We can debate on many issues, but on one thing we all agree. No Israeli should ever fear for his life, regardless of where he chooses to live in, Sderot, Jerusalem, or any other community. I'm sure that the Consul General Aroni would be proud to see all of you here today as we stand for the Fogle family. It was last Friday night, before Shabbat dinner, when I first heard about the outrageous and brutal murder of the innocent family from Itamar. Still in shock, I looked around me as I was about to start my own Shabbat dinner. I looked at my four-month-old son, Jonathan, and my 4-year-old daughter, Emma. I looked at my wife, Sharon. I thought of Ruth and Udi Fogel and their own kids. 3-month-old Hadas, 4-year-old Elad, 11-year-old Yuval. There they were, enjoying their own Shabbat. Now, they will never again share another Oneg Shabbat. They will never again be a complete family. The surviving children, those that were lucky enough to be in a different place, will forever long for the family that should have been. For these orphans, this Purim will not and cannot be as it was supposed to be. There will be no celebration, just tears. The Fogle family is a story of what we call in Israel Melech HaAretz, of Zionists who were connected to the land of Eretz Israel with their heart and their souls. A family that settled in Gush Katif and later, after disengagement, moved to Ariel and then to Itamar to raise their kids and live normal life. My friends, the Torah says that Hametzil nefesh achat kilu etzil olam shalem. But in this case, tragically, we all lost 5 wonderful worlds. There is no excuse, neither political nor religious, for such a barbaric act. There is nothing that can explain or rationalize the slaughtering of innocent, peace-loving people. No one can legitimize the butchering of a family. No one can justify an ongoing incitement of hatred. On this, we all must stand united in Israel and throughout the diaspora. We must send a clear message that we are united against such an inhuman act of violence against the Jewish people and in general. Thank you.
We've all gathered in horror, in rage, in sadness, and also with humility and a touch of embarrassment. For as the Deputy Consul General aptly said, they are the royalty of Israel. the ones who have been willing to sacrifice for love of land and people in ways that we should be willing to sacrifice as well. They have carried the weight of our people and shouldered responsibility that we should share, but which we don't. And they have paid with their lives for their love of the land. And that should inspire a great deal of humility and indebtedness. It is customary at a funeral or at a memorial service for family members to beg mechila, to ask forgiveness of the deceased. This shouldn't be an exception. For as the media and as the representatives of the so-called international community vilified and demonized, dehumanized people like the Fogels, as they were treated as criminals for settling and building beautiful lives in the heartland of our ancestral homeland. Did we protest loud enough? Did we fight back strongly enough on their behalf? Were we there when requests were made from theirs and other settlements for additional help in providing for security equipment? Did we share with them at the most minimal level that should be expected of those of us who choose to live in the diaspora the burdens and the responsibilities to keep them safe and to demand that they be treated by the world with dignity? Achinu kol Beit Yisrael, the entire people of Israel, is one family. And so I say, on all of our behalf, and representing the New York Board of Rabbis, to our brother Udi, to our sister Ruth, and to our dear children, Yoav, Elad, and Hadas, please forgive us. May your memory always be a source of blessing. This is not only a Jewish tragedy, but a horror that demands voices of outrage from people of all faiths. And it gives me great honor to call upon Reverend Jacques DeGraff, Associate Pastor of Canaan Baptist Church in Harlem.
Good afternoon. In a world that seems consumed by current events, the calamities in northern Africa, the challenges that are going on in so many places, the earthquake in Japan, it seems that this was a blip on the radar for too many people. It was just another horrific episode, and why don't we just get over it and move on, because these things happen all the time. I'm here today because it is not enough for the Friends of Israel to issue a statement. It is not enough to make a phone call of condolence. There are some times when your witness must be personal and it must be articulate. It is enough not only to share the Old Testament, your Bible, your Torah, our Old Testament, but it is also important to let you know that your pain is our pain. I feel your pain. And so while some celebrate other occasions today and others go about their business, I came today to be with you and to stand with you to speak out against injustice. It is understandable to talk about it in Jewish terms or Israeli terms, but it is a crime against humanity, and we must speak out, and we must speak with clarity, and we must stand up right now. It was not an isolated episode over there. It impacts all of us and the fabric of life, even in New York City. Because if we can't speak out about that, then we can't speak about the things that happen in our own city. And so we want you to know that the pain that you feel, the outrage that is experienced, that as we stand up, you don't stand alone. The community of faith stands with you, lifts that family and their loved ones in prayer. And also says this, that in the future as we move ahead, as we leave this place to stand against injustice, that we are only a phone call, an email, a text message away. Call on us. We shall never forget, and we shall overcome. Thank you.
Thank you for those inspiring words. We gather today on Tanit Esther with extreme sadness to mourn the barbaric murders of Ruth and Udi Fogle and 3 of their children, and to express our anguish for their surviving children who are now orphans. One of the goals of UJA Federation is to connect to Jews around the world, to build Jewish unity, and to foster a sense of collective responsibility. Today, we come together from across the New York area united. United in our sorrow, united in our mourning, and united in our unswerving commitment to the state of Israel. When leaving a house of Avelus, of mourning, we tell the person sitting Shiva, Hamakom Yenachem Etchem B'toch Sha'ar Aveli Tzion Yerushalayim. May God comfort you among the other mourners of Tzion in Yerushalayim. What this verse seeks to convey is that when one Jew mourns, we are all in mourning. The indescribable pain of those in Itamar is our pain. The stab in their hearts is a stab in ours. May Hashem provide nechama, comfort to them, to the Fogle family sitting Shiva in Israel, and may he provide nechama to all of us. Yehei Zichram Baruch.
Shir HaMa'alot, Mima Makim Karaticha Adonai. Adonai Shim'a B'Koli, Tihena Oznecha Kashuvot L'Kol Tachanunai. Im Avonot Tishmoria, Adonai Mi Amod. Ki Imcha Haslicha, Leman Tivareh. Kiviti Adonai kivata nafshi, v'lidvaro hochalti. Nafshi Adonai, mi shomrim laboker, shomrim laboker. Yachel Yisrael el Adonai, ki im Adonai hachesed, v'harbeim ofedut. V'hu yifted Yisrael, mikol avonotav.
A song of ascents. From the depths I have called to you, O Lord. Lord, hear my voice. Let your ears be attentive to my plea. If you, Lord, should keep account of sins, who could stand? But with you there is forgiveness, that you may be held in awe. I wait for the Lord. My soul waits, and in his word I put my hope. My soul waits for the Lord, more than the watchmen wait for the morning. More than watchmen wait for the morning. Israel, put your hope in the Lord, for with the Lord there is loving kindness, and great is his power to redeem. It is he who will redeem Israel from all their sins.
Please rise. Please join me. Yisgadal v'yisgadash shemei rabo. B'olma divrach Yerusei v'yamlich malchusei. B'chayechonu v'yomechonu v'chaye dechol beis Yisrael. Ba'agalo v'zman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei rabo mavarach le'olam u'olmei olmayor. Yisbarach v'yishtabach v'yispa'ar v'yisromam v'yisnaseh. V'yishador v'yis'aleh v'yishalol. Shmei dekudsha barich hu. La'elo min kol birchasa v'shirasa. Tushbachasa v'nechemasa. Da'amiran b'yolma v'yimru amen. Yehei shalomah rabba min shmaya v'chayim. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Huya aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Please remain standing.
El mulei rachamim shochein b'meromim hametzeim enuachon nechuno al kanefei hashechino b'mahalos kidoshim uteharim kizoehar horokia mazhirim lenishmot Rabbi Yehud ben Chaim ve'ishto Ruth bat Yehuda ve'Tali ve'ayeled Yoav ben Ehud ve'Ruth ve'ayeled Elad ben Ehud ve'Ruth ve'atiyenoket Hadas bat Ehud ve'Ruth shehen nehרגו ושנשחטו על קידוש השם ושהלכו לעולמם. בעבור שאנחנו מתפללים ונודרים צדקה בעד הזכרת נשמותיהם בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמותיהם אדוני נחלתם וינוחו בשלום על משכבותיהם ונאמר
Please remain standing. We're going to conclude with the singing of Hatikva and the national anthem. I did want to take this time to thank Congregation Kehillat Jeshurun and the Ramah schools, the Conference of Presidents staff, and the JCRC staff and UJ Federation, and the dozens of co-sponsoring organizations for bringing more than 1,000 people here today on such short notice, and thousands more who are online. We cannot just mourn. We have to go away recharged and recommitted, determined that we will have zero tolerance for the intolerance, that we will not be silent and we will not be intimidated, but that we will be more determined than ever. I want to thank the many rabbis and organizational leaders and public officials. I see Assembly Weprin, I know others are here, but we determined, as this is a memorial service, that we would not have public officials, but to keep to the theme of this very somber occasion. But we are grateful for their support and for being here. We are miraculously exactly on time. And so we want to thank you all for making this special effort. And we know it was not easy because it was on short notice, that you all came to join together. And I know that this will be a source of comfort to the Fogle family.
כל עוד בלבב פנימה נפש יהודי הומיה ולפתי מזרח קדימה עין לציון צופיה and bright stars through the perilous fight. O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Malcolm, you spoke beautifully, and this was an extraordinary memorial service. Yashikoach, it was so important to be done. You know, you said at the beginning of your own remarks it was something you needed. Talk to me a little bit about that. How did that happen for you?
I felt that I needed to come together with others. I felt that I needed to do something, not just to accept what happened and move on. I felt that others, if I felt that way, would also feel that way. And I must say, I'm haunted by the pictures. I wish I wasn't. I wish I could erase it from my memory, my mind all the time, but I can't. And this, coming together and being able to share with others, is a form of therapy, I guess. Because once we remember that we are one and that we can come together and we mourn together and celebrate together, live together, and we will fight together.
Only one more question. This is not a time for long discussion. But you and I have talked many times about the peace process and the overall look and feel of the Middle East. Are you afraid that this is going to do real damage to peace possibilities going forward?
The incitement does real damage. This attack is an outgrowth of it. This and all the previous attacks. And what will do the greatest damage is to dismiss this attack, is not to act and not to draw the lessons and not to demand that the PA stop the incitement and act against it, because then you will have generations raged on hate. You will never have peace. So the answer is that this murder and the deaths of these innocents and other innocents can't be just forgotten. It can't be just looked at one day, mourned, we remember till the Shiva is over, and then it dissipates, and only the relatives and the immediate family live with the pain. We all live with the pain, and if we are going to spare people in the future, we have to learn those lessons and demand that the right actions be taken.
The Fogels will not be forgotten, and you will help us remember. Thank you for all you do, man. Thank you. I'm standing now with Rabbi Haskel Lookstein, not only the rabbi here at Kehillas Yeshrin, but also the director of Ramaz, the head of Ramaz, and one of the truly outstanding rabbis on the American Jewish scene, and you are wonderful today. Haskel, one more moment. What's this memorial tribute mean going forward for the Jewish community?
I wish I were a prophet. I can't really tell you that. But this young woman just was asking me about my book. I wrote a book on what American Jews were doing while 6 million were being murdered. Were we our brother's keepers? Mm-hmm. If your viewers want to go look for it, they can find it online. They can find it in all kinds of places. That book has one major conclusion, and that is that during the entire Holocaust, American Jewry was carrying on business as usual. Parties were being held, celebrations were being held, everybody's personal things were being done. And nobody was really focusing on the fact that across the ocean, Jews are being murdered, even though everybody knew it. But they just went about their business and shut it out. This kind of a meeting is designed to make sure that we can't do that again. That when something happens, we have to come together and we have to shout and we have to mourn and we have to scream and we have to resolve to do whatever has to be done to help our brothers and sisters in Israel. That's what this meeting is all about.
Does this, in your mind, hurt the peace process, or are you still optimistic?
Look, I am among the majority of Israelis who feel that the current status quo is not really tenable in the long run. It's not good for us, and it's not good for the Arabs. And that therefore there should be a two-state peaceful solution. However, I am among the majority of Israelis who feel that although they want very badly to reach some kind of an agreement, the chances of reaching an agreement now and for the foreseeable future are very, very slim. Every time we've tried to do something, we've gotten our heads handed to us. We withdrew from Lebanon, and what happened? We had rockets coming on the north. We withdrew from Gaza, and what happened? We have rockets coming on the south. If we withdraw from Yehuda v'Shomron, the rockets are going to be in the heartland of Israel. It's not that I don't want peace. There isn't anybody to make peace with. That's the problem. And until they change their culture, as Malcolm Hoenlein and the others here were saying, and stop glorifying murder and terror and hatred, and start to raise a generation that will be ready for peace, like we are, there is no process that's possible.
Haskel, thank you for your years of leadership. We'll continue to turn to you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Haskel Lookstein.